Please stand and join us with the pledge. Councilwoman Inzarella.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Here.
Councilman McCarthy.
Here.
Councilwoman Noah.
Here.
Councilwoman Inzarella.
Here.
Councilman Roman.
Yeah. Okay, welcome everybody this afternoon. We have our 4th precinct here, our representative, Mr. Loman.
Yes, at this time, I'd like to ask Captain Karen Coach to come on up and give us a little overview of what's going on in Smithtown.
Hi, my name is Karen Kelch. I'm the captain over in the 4th Precinct, Suffolk County. Basically, school's starting in September, and I'd like everyone to be careful when they're driving. We have a lot of school buses. Kids run out when they're running late and standing at the bus stop across the streets. They don't watch where they're going, and we have a lot of children on the roads. We don't want anybody having any accidents. We had a National Night Out. I don't know if anybody's familiar with National Night Out. It's a free night out. The police department has blow-ups like obstacle courses and slides for the kids to go on. We had this year at the Smithtown Mall. We've had it in the past at Target. They had the Girl Scouts, Build-A-Bear, Macy's, Bobby's Burger. All of this stuff is all free. You bring your kids, the family, you go out there, the kids play in that bounce house, they go on the slides, they make the Build-A-Bear, they learn about the Girl Scouts, the Explorer program, the auxiliaries, the Citizens Academy. It's really a very nice thing. They have all the equipment, the emergency vehicles. They can jump in the back of the bread trucks and see how, the Hummers look and everything. It's a nice thing for the kids. It's always the first Tuesday of every August. So next year, hopefully we'll have it at the Smithtown Mall again. It was a good site, we had a good turnout. St. Catherine's was there. They may have it as a blood drive next year, so we'll be able to do things like that. It was a definite positive thing. We had good turnout. We have community meetings in this Concept branch at the Smithtown Library. We're going to have our next one on Tuesday, September 3rd. If anybody's interested in going to that. We have cars that are getting broken into. People are leaving their cars unlocked in their driveways. So if you want to prevent that, we have 312 cars a month having breaking into where they're taking stuff in Suffolk County. So really what you need to do is just lock your cars. If you have a key fob, do not leave it in your car. Many times they can get into the car, and then once they find the key fob or the key in the car, if you hide an extra key in the car, they'll steal your car. If you have valuables, laptops, money, anything like that, don't leave it. Don't leave your pocketbook or anything on the seat, anything like that. Bring it in the house or hide it there. These people who have drug addictions, they will go and they will check every car on the block looking to find extra change in your ashtray or whatever. So just keep your cars locked. Same thing with your homes. We had the fatal car accident on Lake Avenue with the jogger. We have a patrol check card there now, so we're checking for speeders. We're checking, making sure that, if there's any problems on your block with things with speeders or stop signs, call us. We'll put a patrol check out on that, so the police check that off and make sure that everybody's abiding by the laws when they can. We have a narco complaint. 631-852-NARCO. If you have any houses on your block that is selling or dealing any drug use or anything like that, call NARCO. You can make it anonymously. You don't have to do that. You don't have to give any of your information. We also have Operation Medicine Cabinet at the precinct, where there's like a mailbox where you would put all your old medications. We do not accept needles or liquids, but any kind of pills, anything that you want to get rid of. We don't ask if it's legal or not legal drugs that you're getting rid of. It's all anonymous. It's open 24 hours a day. Every precinct has it. You just go in there, you put the stuff in, you drop it in, and we dispose of it properly. So if you have any drugs in your home that you would like to get rid of, legal or illegal, bring them into the precinct. The Citizens Academy is a great way to learn all about different laws. They teach you all different things. If you want to go to the Citizens Academy, they have that on, it's at the Police Academy in Brentwood. There's 16 sessions, one session per week. It's 48 hours. It goes from 6:30 to 9:30, 3 hour long. They run 2 academies a year in September and March, and there's no fee. So if you're interested, you can go on our website, Suffolk County PD Home, sign up for the Citizens Academy if you're interested in doing something like that. We also have a Nixle where you can sign up on the Suffolk County PD org website, and you can sign it up on your cell phone, you can sign up to go to your emails, it gives you alerts, it tells you what's going on in the community, any information that, is happening, missing children, any burglaries or things that are happening. It's a good thing to sign up for if you're interested. You can also put your zip code in and dial 888-777 into your cell phone. So it's 3 8s and 3 7s, and then put your zip code, and then you'll be signed up and you'll get it. Bicycle safety, if you have children, make sure they're wearing their helmets, teach them how to drive safely on their bicycles so that we don't have any accidents staying to the side of the road. This time of year, a lot of kids will be out there, it's nice weather. We have a meeting with the superintendents of the schools so that we can talk about the school shootings and different things with the schools, try and work things out. They're coming into the precinct. We have red phones or alert buttons. They have some armed security in different schools. So working out active shooter drills and things like that. We also have a hotline for Cancel the Keg Party. So if you know anybody who's serving underage kids, we have a number you can call, again, anonymously, tell anybody if there's some kind of a party that you're hearing about so that we can go and get it taken care of beforehand. It's 631-852-KEGS, K-E-G-S. Anybody who's over 18 years old who's throwing a party like this where kids under 21 are served or drinking and they know about it, they can be charged. So that's something that we have. Okay. Anybody have any questions for me, anything?
I do.
Okay.
Just want to make sure you're aware that the new 7-Eleven is opening on this Friday on the corner of County Road 16, Smithtown Boulevard, and Old Nichols Road. And a lot of children will probably be trying to cross that street. And it's fairly dangerous because there's no don't walk traffic signals at that point.
Okay, yes.
Please mention your name for the record, please.
Peter Hansen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Yes, we had that information. They had sent it to us that they were opening it. We will definitely have somebody there. Thank you. That is good. Anybody have anything else? Any other concerns or anything? No?
Anybody on board?
Okay.
Captain, thank you very much for coming in
Thank you.
today.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay, sitting as the Board of Water Commissioners. Madam Clerk?
Minutes approval for the Board of Water meeting of July 16. And the Board of Water Commissioners to authorize the following. 1, Town Clerk to advertise for bid 19-82 for water distribution system maintenance. Number 2, the Comptroller to dispose of 2 vehicles. And number 3 and 4 are transfers as per the agenda.
Councilman Lohman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Minzarella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Nowick,
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Supervisor Wareham.
Yes. Reconvening as Town Board, correspondence.
One, Public House LLC, Emily Power Foundation Music Concert, third reading. 2, Comac Kings Park Rotary Club Family Fun Run, third reading. 3, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation 5K fundraiser, third reading. 4, Comac High School Homecoming Parade, second reading. 5, Hop Schools Homecoming Parade, first reading. 6, Hop Schools Fall 5K Family Fun Run, first reading. And 7 is the Building Department report from July.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to be heard on these special events? No one to be heard? We'll move on to public hearings.
The first public hearing is the town board to consider a proposed amendment to Chapter 9 of the Town Code entitled Appearance Tickets.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the Town Board. The first public hearing is for a proposed amendment to Chapter 9. It's just a housekeeping matter. It's adding the title of Town Attorney Applicant and Complaint Investigator to the list of public servants who are authorized to issue and serve summonses.
Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing? Anybody on the board?
No.
Move to close the hearing. Thank you, Counselor.
Second.
Supervisor Wareheim,
Yes?
Councilman McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noah,
Yes.
Councilwoman Zarella,
Yes.
Councilman Lowen.
Yes.
The town board to consider a proposed town code amendment to add chapter 206 entitled Massage Establishments.
And for the record, Janice Hanson, Assistant Town Attorney. The purpose of this amendment, proposed amendment, is to adopt a new chapter of the town code entitled Massage Establishments that would enable the town to regulate and monitor the licensing, conditions, and location of massage establishments throughout Smithtown. The proposed chapter would require owners and employees to apply for a license through the town prior to operating or working at any such business. Owners, in addition to the license application, would have to pay a fee of $750 for their first application, and then a renewal fee of $250 annually thereafter. And employees would be paying a fee of $25 with their application. The license application would require a number of things that would be helpful to ensure the safety of the customers, including proof of graduation from a New York State recognized school for massage therapy, proof of insurance for businesses, character references, information about the individual's backgrounds, any previous violations or criminal convictions, among other things. All owners and employees would be required to have a valid license to practice massage in New York State, and any change in ownership or the operation of the massage establishment would require a new license to be applied for. The proposed chapter also requires that the businesses be located at least 1,000 feet from each other, so they can't be any closer than that. Limits the operating hours to between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., and sets forth sanitary standards, and also subjects them to periodic inspections by Public Safety Department to ensure compliance with all conditions and standards that are set forth in the chapter. The proposed chapter does exempt massage therapy performed by medical practitioners, medical institutions licensed by New York State, and trainers employed by a professional athletic association or physical education department of an accredited university, high school, college. And also those massages given just in nail salons or hair salons that are in full view of the public, because they're not considered massage establishments under this. Penalties for a violation of the provisions of the chapter would include a fine of up to $500, imprisonment of up to 15 days per offense, and/or license revocation. And if adopted, this law would take effect on January 1st, 2020. That concludes my presentation.
Renewals are annual, correct?
I'm sorry?
Renewals are annual?
Yes.
Is there anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing?
My name is Kristen from.
Please come to the mic.
Hi, my name is Kristen Bramonti. I own massage establishment in Kings Park, Papa Wellness. I'm a licensed massage therapist, and I just want to clarify what this means for my business and why this is implied on us. We are licensed. I paid $26,000 for my education. I have a license. I am allowed to practice. What is the purpose of this bill, and how is this going to impact me?
Well, the purpose of it is to ensure that the people that are operating massage establishments are licensed and that they're regulated by New York State and they're doing the right thing for their customers. So we need to have an extra check in place to ensure that we know that the people that are running the establishments are.
It is not allowed to practice massage therapy in New York State without a license. It's already in place.
Yes, but
Why am I being charged $750 for the first year and $250 thereafter? What is the money being used on? What is the purpose of this bill? If it's because of human trafficking, I'm all for it. I'm a mother, I'm a massage therapist, I am being affected by human trafficking. In the media, my profession is being portrayed as a problem, and I'm all for it, but it's already existing law in New York State that you cannot practice massage, hands-on massage, without a license. You should be able to go into these establishments and shut them down based on that they don't have a license. What is the money, $750? What purpose will that serve, and how is this going to help me? And how is this going to help shut them down?
Well, without this code, unfortunately, over the past number of years, it's become impossible for us to do that. We can go shut them down for not being licensed, and they open back up the next day. So this has all been researched. I understand your comments.
Did you actually consult the other businesses like me?
Sure, we've looked at everything.
To come
The
up with
only
a-
way we are going to be able to control it is to change the town code, which is what we're doing.
I have some ideas too. Nobody has asked the legitimate
Well, this is a public
businesses.
hearing, so if you'd like to
Yeah.
give your comments to the clerk,
Okay.
they'll be taken under consideration.
My interest is also to shut them down, but it's orange, it's apples. They have no licenses. This is human trafficking concern. There are courts in every county, human trafficking courts.
Mhm.
There is other resources that are available to shut them down. What about the landlords that don't check for licenses? This, I don't see that in the bill. The landlords need to be fined as well, and they need to ask for licenses before they allow these establishments to open in their buildings.
What I would suggest you do is have your comments. You could give them to the clerk, or you could call during the rest of this week. In this public hearing, those comments will be taken into consideration before we vote on the bill.
When is the vote?
Next board meeting would be in September.
In September, so we have time
Yes.
to review that and to also
Correct.
ask questions and come up with a better bill?
It would have to be voted on at a board meeting. The next board meeting is in September, beginning of September.
Okay, so nothing is going to be voted on until September?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
And I would be happy to meet with you after the board meeting to give you a lot more behind-the-scenes stuff.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I move to close the hearing.
Second. Supervisor Warehead?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noah?
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella?
Yes.
Councilman Loman?
Yes.
Number 3, the town board to consider accepting the draft local waterfront revitalization program updated for submission to the New York State Department of State.
Good afternoon, Peter Hans, Town Planning Director. The Planning Department's been very busy this summer, working on the update of the LWRP. I'm going to hand over the microphone to Allison Murray, as she is the project manager. Also on hand is Charlie McCaffrey, our consultant, if you have any questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the Town Board, and Allison Murray, Principal Planner in the Planning Department. So the purpose of today's meeting is for us to give you a little bit of an update on the LWRP update and to accept public comment from the public. So the status as of right now is that a preliminary draft of the LWRP has been completed. We're at the stage where the town board can accept public comment. There's also been a few public workshops where the public has given some comments previously. Once the town board has the public hearing and closes the public hearing, we anticipate a secret determination of significance, possibly in September. Once we get that, then this draft can be submitted to the Department of State for their review. Once they review it and send it back to the town, we will incorporate their comments, and then it gets distributed to the other state agencies, and there's a 60-day review period at that point. So there are still a few steps here before the final LWRP can be adopted. The history of the LWRP is that the town was the first town in New York State to adopt an LWRP back in 1989, which at this point is 30 years ago. Over the past 30 years, the town has drafted 2 amendments, both of which have not gone through to final adoption. The first addressed the Kings Park Psychiatric Center when that had closed, and the second was an overall update that I'd say probably about 15 years ago had started. In 2013, the town applied for and received a grant from New York State Department of State to update the program. So that's where we are now. This slide just shows the contents of the program. It was formulated to mimic the state's Long Island Sound Coastal Management Program. So it's divided into four categories: the natural coast, the public coast, the working coast, and the developed coast. This map here shows the boundaries. It's the existing boundary and the proposed boundary for the LWRP. You can see the circled areas. Those depict the areas that will change from the existing program to the new one. The changes were largely done to mimic the state's DEC wild and scenic river corridors. So it reduces some confusion for people living within that area. The larger changes is that we're proposing to include the St. John Land property on the south side of Sunken Meadow Road, which was formerly not included in this. And there are some properties on the east side or south side of Edgewood Avenue that had been in the program that would no longer be in the program at this point. Going into the developed coast, there were a few significant areas that have either been developed or are primed for development in the waterfront area that I'd like to call out. The first is the Nissequogue River State Park and the former grounds of the Kings Park Psychiatric Center. As everybody knows, there was a bill in New York State that the Senate and the Assembly had passed to clarify that the former grounds of the Psychiatric Center are part of Nissequogue River State Park. This LWRP is consistent with the legislation which also requires that a master plan be drawn up for the state park. So the LWRP recommends the same, that for such a large piece of property, there should be a master plan for any development. With respect to the western portion of the Smithtown Central Business District, there's a small area of the Central Business District that is within the waterfront area. The recommendation in the LWRP is that this area be redeveloped with water-dependent and water-enhanced uses. It also recommends that the town consider petitioning the DEC to designate that portion of the waterfront area as a community. The current designation is recreational river corridor, and this would allow some additional flexibility in that area. For St. John Land, we're recommending that the town facilitate a land swap with the state. In San Remo, the LWRP recommends preserving undersized parcels in the area due to water quality issues. The natural coast, the main things that it hits on are flooding and erosion, sea level rise, water quality, air quality, and the living resources. Different from the original program adopted 30 years ago, this program recommends that the town consider sea level rise in making any decisions about land use and policy moving into the future. It also incorporates the idea of the innovative and alternative wastewater treatment systems that the county has begun to permit, and green stormwater infrastructure to handle some stormwater. This picture here, just for the town's reference and the public's, is a model that depicts a 4-foot rise in sea level, which is the medium to high estimate for what would happen by 2100. So if that were to happen, just so the town has an idea, what would be underwater? So you're looking at parts of Sunken Meadow State Park, small areas in San Remo, and also just south of the boat basin in Nissequogue River State Park. The town is pretty lucky in that it's largely protected by bluffs, but there are some areas that we would have to consider. The public coast, the town is one of the only towns that has such a tremendous amount of open space. Approximately 50% of the waterfront area is in public ownership. And I think even a larger percentage of the shoreline is in public ownership. There are some areas where there's limited access to the waterfront area, and in those areas we are recommending improving the access. Some ideas are relocating the Greenbelt Trail along the river. That's in the areas where it follows the streets. Creating linkages between the parks. For expansion of boating, there is potential to expand boating, certainly in Nissequogue River State Park, to expand the marina there, possibly reconfiguring moorings. There was a suggestion to explore a boat launch into the Smithtown Bay, and also the possibility of adding boat slips in the harbor if it's determined that there's no impact to the environment. We certainly recommend increasing boat access. The Working Coast addresses a harbor management plan, which is required by New York State Department of State. It also addresses the commercial and recreational shellfish harvesting and recreational fishing. This map that I have here is a copy of the harbor management plan that would be submitted to the state. The items that I would just like to address to the board are the areas depicted in red are currently closed to shellfishing, and the areas in the darker blue are seasonally closed to shellfishing. So one of the primary goals of the LWRP is to improve the water quality to an extent that you could expand the shellfish harvesting in the harbor and possibly in the river. The next steps, as I had said before, would first be to adopt a secret determination, hopefully at the next town board meeting, and then submit to New York State Department of State. From there, there's a few rounds of revision, but ultimately it would end up with the town board adopting a final LWRP, and subsequent to that, the code amendments and other implementation strategies that are recommended in the update. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try and answer. We also have our consultant here. If I'm unable to answer, and she certainly can. Thank you.
Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing? Most people, okay. So, do you have them sorted out so we know?
I have some names I don't know.
Okay, so why don't we just come up one at a time? So why don't you come up, why don't you start?
Just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Michael D'Agostino. I live at the head of the river in Smithtown with my wife Joanne. I'd like to make two comments, one a general comment and then a more specific one. In general, first I'd like to say that I commend the planning department for undertaking this effort. But associated with that, I think it's important that whatever changes may come about as a result of this plan, that we take into account the importance of maintaining the historic treasures of this town, that we do not compromise the historic preservation nature that we as caretakers of history need to consider. Specifically, I'd like to address the head of the river where Joanne and I live. And at the southern end of the river at Phillips Pond is the grist mill. The head of the river community was the beginning of Smithtown. It dates back to the early 1700s. For years, Joanne's father, Dr. Herbert Luther, spent much effort in maintaining and preserving the mill. Upon his passing in 2006, he established a trust to continue the maintenance and preservation of the mill. My wife Joanne and her sister Molly Machichi are co-trustees of that trust. As part of the mill, there is the dam which creates the barrier, the separation between Caleb Smith Preserve and the Nissequogue River. And at that point, there is an adjacent spillway as part of that dam, which is an integral part of the mill. It was the power source that powered the wheel that created the grain that was used for supplying food to the community back in the early 1700s.
So you have 1 minute to wrap it up.
Pardon?
1 minute left.
Okay. So the point I'd like to make is that we consider that dam an integral part of the mill and the history of the area. I make this point because I'm aware of advocacy groups that would like to get rid of dams, history be damned. And I would like to voice our strong objection to any consideration of removal of the dam for any reason. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Linda, come on up.
Good afternoon. Linda Henninger, Kings Park Civic Association. We would like to thank the Planning Department, especially Ms. Murray, for their thoughtful and extensive work on this issue. We would also like to thank them for their easy access and outreach when it comes to public questions. It's been spectacular. The Kings Park Civic Association requests that New York State's 1999 covenant regarding the former Kings Park Psychiatric Center, now the Nisququogue River State Park, be formally incorporated into the LWRP, specifically in Section 6, which is the consistency section. I have a copy of the covenant, but I also emailed it yesterday. The longstanding covenant protects, among other elements, the preservation of mature growth forests, the guarantee of 3-to-1 ratio open space to development ratio, and conservation of an existing greenway along the eastern edge of the property. The appropriate environmental preservation of this valuable property is of the utmost importance to the Kings Park Civic Association. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Mr. Holtz, we'll go row by row and then we'll go back this way.
Good afternoon. I'm William Holst. Been a resident of Wisconsin for the last 34 years. But growing up, I lived on Brookside Drive within easy walking distance of the Nisququogue River. And back in those days, as some of you may remember, there was a Frank Friedes down at where is now the county park, Given Park. And the Nisququogue River has been very important for many people who have lived in Smithtown for many years. I mean, I'm sure most of you have canoed or kayaked in the river, and fortunately, now I have grandsons that do so. So the discussion that I think I'm most concerned about is the concern that was raised in the workshop on July 8th about petitioning the DEC to change the designation of the commercially zoned part of Main Street could lead to more inappropriate commercial development. That's clearly what we wouldn't want to see. And the risk of having a door opened in terms of the commercial properties that are currently somehow grandfathered in. You have the Gentlemen's Club, as it's called, and the hookah lounge, both that are in neighborhood business districts, although they don't even, if you look at the what's allowed in the neighborhood business district, they're not even permitted in the neighborhood business district. Those types of things only leave open the possibility that unless something is done, I think in terms of adding an additional restriction or a different category, such as neighborhood business river, which has specific criteria, that way will ensure the people who are the residents of Smithtown and those people who use the river of having the river preserved as we expect. So I think there should be further discussion regarding the whole area of the Western Business District on Main Street. If you go down there, you'll see that the area is almost like a separate autonomous area, because behind the hookah lounge, I went down there yesterday, stuff's been dumped out in the backyard. There doesn't seem to be any sort of enforcement of any sort of rules regarding that area. The Gentlemen's Club that has stuff growing in the gutters, so it's not only are they non-compliant, but they're not even maintaining the properties. So people come to that county park, they see that portion of Smithtown. I think we want that area to be something that we're proud of. And I don't see why there's any rush to adopt a plan regarding that area without further workshops and further discussion. So I would ask that the public hearing today not be closed, keep it open, take comments,
Mr. Holtz.
maybe have another workshop.
Your time is up. Thank you very much. I will, so you know, we do have, we are working on plans, Mr. Holtz, as we speak, for that area down below. As you just cited, the county park, the gentleman's club, those areas, we're working on issues right now where we could preserve those in a natural state.
Could I just respond to that?
No, just-
There was an update, I think, as of Friday regarding the Breslin property. Now, as far as I'm aware, all of the storm runoff that goes down the hill, and you know from here that the storm runoff coming this direction, you know, sort of kept the area under the trestle a couple years ago impassable. Well, just as much water must be going that way, and I don't know if there's ever been a study of how much water comes down, you know, the street down into the river. I think that's before something's done with the Breslin property, that should be examined. And I think that the other thing that I'm very concerned about is there's something that's said in terms of exchanging property with the county. I would be adamantly against, you know, exchanging property with the county. If you want to keep the county involved in terms of giving money and contributing, let's keep the county, the given part, where it is, keep the county involved, and hopefully we'll get the county to bring in some money.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm short. Good afternoon, my name is Jan Singer. I'm a resident of Kings Park. And I'm here to speak about what I could not find in the latest revision of the plan, wasn't there earlier. Many people may have read the Newsday story about the impact on the South Shore of the latest Army Corps of Engineers attempt to make a plan to protect New York City in the event of a storm surge. We all know what happened in Superstorm Sandy, and it's a legitimate concern for New York City. What they didn't discuss to any degree in the article is what happens to the North Shore. One of the things they were talking about through the Army Corps of Engineers was floodgates near the Throgs Neck Bridge. When the Army Corps of Engineers was organizing conversations, they went as far east as Great Neck. But the risk to communities much further east than Great Neck still exists. The plan itself talked about rising sea levels from glacial melt in Greenland, etc. And they talk about 2 and 4 feet, and that's proper. Except that in the event of a storm surge, when you squeeze off one end, you run the risk of water that gets raised along our northern coast, which interferes with our wetlands, which also interferes with any development that is near the coast. Well, we're lucky on the North Shore that there's bluffs, but as you go further south along the Nissequag, if you look at the water table level along communities that adjacent to the Nissequag, we need to be sure that all future development takes into account that potential for storm surge. And I think that the town of Smithtown would be well served if it managed to get itself a seat at the table with the Army Corps of Engineers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to thank the Planning Department for adding a good historic map since the last public meeting. Accompanying the removal of certain historic properties from the original LWRP, the new LWRP calls for implementation of Policy 2 recommending changes to Chapters 185, Historic Districts, and 322, Zoning, of the Town Code that would increase protections of all sites on the town's historic sites inventory. Certainly, when the new LWRP calls for quote-unquote amending Chapter 322, it would be important to add a definition for historic site and/or manage an updated townwide inventory, because many very historic buildings in the township were never inventoried, or thoroughly inventoried. Accurate inventories are key when it comes to applying for matching grants or evaluating federal and state historic preservation tax credits. To make the new LWRP work, a reliance upon chapters 185 and 322 would greatly benefit from abiding by chapter 39 of the town code, which calls for an historical advisory board comprised of 6 members and the town historian. Ideal representation would consist of a knowledgeable town resident from each hamlet, Kings Park, Nesconset, Smithtown, and St. James, a 5th from Comac or Fort Salonga, and a 6th from Hauppauge or Ronkonkoma. According to Chapter 185-4B.2.A.4, the Historic Advisory Board could then act in an advisory capacity to the town planning director if the department should prepare written recommendations to the town board for the creation of National Register historic districts, etc., as specified in chapters 39 and 185. Other townships realize the register isn't just a nice to have list. It can bring in grant money and tax credits, revenue streams that hold the potential to benefit the resident and business owner so that residential assets aren't thrown away with no knowledge of their income potential within and outside the LWRP.
Please give me your name and address for the record.
Cora Geske, Atterbury Drive, Smithtown.
Thank you. Mr. Small.
So, good afternoon Supervisor, Town Board, and for the public record, Tim Small, long-term resident of Smithtown. I'm also the president of the Smithtown United Civic Association. So I'm here with a simple request, and I think this builds on what Bill Holtz has already requested. But I'm going to formally request the delay of the acceptance of the LWRP. Now, fundamentally, I think the Planning Department has done a nice piece of work. But I don't believe that the public comments received in the public workshops of the 22nd of February nor on July 8th have been completely vetted. So specifically, as examples, building on the section or the discussion surrounding petitioning the DEC for change of the designation of zoned parts of Main Street. The draft plan states south side of Main Street, east of the Bull, shall be developed for multifamily, recreational uses, and commercial uses, including office, retail, and personal service. Any development in this area shall be clustered and preserve half of the land for water enhanced recreation. That's not consistent with the discussion at the community meetings or the workshops. Additionally, policy 1.2, it's not even consistent with 1.1F, the 4th bullet. And I could go on with a few more. I don't want to go through all of them right here. But I think there's an opportunity to have additional workshop so we can bring to closure some of the discussion. And if indeed there's a position taken, I think as a public, we really want to understand why. What's the value proposition, and what does it bring to the community? With that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, Town Board. My name is Kevin McAllister. I'm president of Defend H2O, a Sag Harbor-based group, and for the record, the group that is advocating for dam removal. I want to commend the Planning Department and Mr. McCaffrey for the good work on drafting the revisions to the LWRP. My area will focus on shoreline management. That is an area of expertise, both through my academic training and professional work down in South Florida. I addressed at least the town some months ago on the dynamic equilibrium of the coast. 4 influences: sea level rise, energy, storm energy, of course, supply of sand, and the shape of the beach. While we have little control of sea level rise and storms, of course, We can manage sand supply to the extent possible. I was pleased to see inlet management. I've spoke of this at my comments earlier, that it's important that available sand that is being lost internally or taken out of the system in the inlets be appropriately placed so it can carry on through the system. The shape of the beach, of course, can be greatly influenced by structures. And I've been a consummate proponent of natural shorelines. Been speaking against shoreline hardening for some time. I recognize the distinction from working shorelines, your economic areas, to what's termed the natural coast and public coast. At all costs, to the extent that we keep the structures out, that's important because inevitably they have ramifications downstream. Coastal retreat, another factor factoring in with sea level rise and coastal inundation, that's important. And I guess I'll emphasize to you, while the LWRP does a good job of capturing obviously the town's jurisdiction, it's not removed from other influences. And I think it's imperative, and I will speak to this at a later hearing, that Nissequogue, the village of Nissequogue, is in fact consistent with the actions that this LWRP looks to achieve. And again, sand supply from these bluffs, shoreline access, the public access, and I will go as far as saying if we see wholesale armoring of the bluff line through Nissequogue, it may be decades out, but inevitably it will have ramifications to public coast, namely the public beaches. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Rob Sikora, president of the Forestwood Civic Association and a board member of the Smithtown United Civic Association. We've addressed this at the public information meetings, but 18 months ago, the town of Smithtown proposed a grant application to New York State, and part of that grant application was to preserve the business district by the Bull up to Brookside Drive. This is part of the map, and it was supposed to be a recreational area on the south side and to preserve that area to the best of the ability. There's so many inconsistencies with this in LWRP that I agree with Mr. Small that I think we should table this and look forward to having more discussions because there's a lot of inconsistencies. One of the other things that the Forestwood Civic Association is adamantly against, and I've met with town attorneys regarding this, is the proposal of a cell tower in the LWRP and the Wild Scenic River Corridor. Chapter 242 of the LWRP, the past LWRP, indicates that the area from the Nissequogue River to Brookside Drive is an area of avoidance for telecommunications, towers, etc. I know the town is looking to override this. This is really inconsistent with what we're looking for, in that gateway to the central business district. The other thing that I would bring up is the area that we're talking about, which I'm talking about, from the Bull to Brookside Drive, there's two historic sites that are now being considered by New York State. One of them is the Resurrection Byzantine Catholic Church, and the other one is the Smithtown Bull. Cell towers have an adverse effect on historic buildings and sites. So once again, the historic significance of these two properties shouldn't be overlooked when we're considering cell towers and other business enhancements. One of the things I spoke at our last Civic Association meeting was, and a lot of people don't know this, that the current zoning, the footprints of those businesses from that area really can't be changed. When 84 Lumber went out of business, the buildings that were there were built on the same footprint. That was to preserve the LWRP and the Wild Scenic River Corridor. This proposal is not really doing that. So what we're asking, same thing as Mr. Small, is that we table this for a couple of months to see if we have more input and maybe come to some common ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Featherston from Nisqually. I didn't come originally to talk on the hearing. I have my presentation as usual later with my 3 minutes, but I have to, I had prepared myself to make comment, and so I will. In reading over the revisions and knowing what's going on in the coast in Nisqually and Smithtown's recent rather subterranean efforts, I have to comment on the last sentence in the LWRP. State and federal action should be undertaken in a manner consistent with the LWRP. As anyone internally knows, they haven't been. Not only that, we have an intermunicipal agreement with Nisqually, who is the custodian of our waterfront, really. Their actions and the state actions have been inconsistent with their LWRP. So how do we resolve the inconsistency between our neighbor, who as custodian of the waterfront and is inconsistent with their, if you took geometry, if you know, we should be consistent with each other. We're not. And that is a big problem. Nobody talks, it's the elephant in the room. And I'm telling you, there's an elephant in the room. It ties the hand of my town for the coast I love. And I don't know if anyone will be around later, but I have my probably 2.5 minutes that gives you an update of what's going on in Nisqually and the effect on Long Beach, Short Beach, and Schubert's Beach, never mind east end of Long Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I was also going to discuss this later, but I guess it fits in now. Maria LaMalfa, St. James. I'd like to talk about the town's responsibility to the residents and our natural resources. And of course, I'm talking about the jewel in the crown of Smithtown, our beaches. Everybody loves our beaches. There's ample data, as Mr. McAllister had said, that hardening the coastline worsens erosion. I have a degree in engineering, so I get the physics here. The technical would take more than 3 minutes. Nisqually code includes erosion protection structures. And I have to laugh when I say that because these structures actually worsen erosion. You have two people who have an erosion protection structure here, you have one here, and the guy in the middle says, now I need one because the erosion is worse where I am. So pretty soon, everybody who is next to an erosion protection structure has to get their own. And what do you do when you go to weld and there's nobody there to build an erosion protection structure? We start losing that there. These structures are being approved by the DEC contrary to laws, state laws, including the Coastal Erosion Hazard Act and others. Nisqually turns around and says, it's good enough for the DEC, it's good enough for us. Some of these structures have permits and some don't. These structures should not be here. They interfere with the movement of sand, which feeds our beaches, and the sandbars, which in turn protect the bluffs. So there's a structure just east of Weld under Smithtown domain, because I believe it's below the relevant water line here, which keeps people from walking along the coast like I used to do when my children were young, and what I would like to do with my grandson when he is older. I hope Smithtown accepts responsibility for this, because right now it's you get a structure, but that's not best for our town, for the majority of residents. If the DEC and Nissaquag are going to cede control of our coastline to a few homeowners on the bluff, then the town of Smithtown should pick up the banner and do what's best for the majority of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Superintendent Werheim and Town Board, thank you for the privilege of hearing residents in the local area on this matter. My name is Elliot Goldstein. I've been a resident of Smithtown for 49 years. I've lived on Oakside Drive, which is contiguous to the Nissaquag River on the west side. It's off of Landing Avenue. I also own some property on Oakside Drive, which is also contiguous to Nissaquag River. I hadn't intended to get involved with this. Unfortunately, I did. Before I go any further how this affects me specifically, I just want to go on the coattails of the lady who just spoke about the Nissaquag River. I live directly across from a house that's on River Road, Nissaquag River Road. And I've seen that house be overcome by water, by the tide coming in during hurricanes. And what they did was they took part of a separate building and they moved it over and they connected the two of them and raised the property a little bit. I'm sure that if the river were to rise more than 10 feet, which is not that far from the last, I think it started with an L, I can't remember, senior moment, but the river rose 7 feet, and I took photographs. Actually, I took movies of the river and how that hurricane affected the river, and that house was underwater. I'm certain if you're thinking in terms of 90, 100 years, that house will definitely float away before then. Another thing I didn't hear spoken about today is anything that has to do with grandfather clauses. If any property owners like myself, and I own 142 and 144 Oakside, oh, it's over.
1 minute.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd like to find out if any studies were done on grandfather clauses. And if the level change study included hurricanes, the hurricanes over the last 25 years. And I'd like to get copies of the map that was put up, especially the one that had circles around it, since the circle was applicable to my property on 142 and 144 property, Oakside Drive. The last question had to do with the colors on one of the maps, which showed red, green. I think it was the second map. And I was wondering what the colors on that map represented, because nobody spoke of that. The lady that was up did not speak of what those colors are.
Sorry, your time is up, but we'll be here after the meeting. If you'd like to stay, you can have that discussion with our planning people to clarify that. Anyone else? No one else. Okay, this is, Mr. Hans, this is available on our website, this draft. So public understands you can go to the town website and you can download this draft to take a look at it. Comment period is of course open, so we welcome your comments after today as well as today. So thank you very much, everybody. Nobody else wish to be heard? Anybody on the board?
No.
Okay, I move to close the hearing.
Second. Supervisor Wareham?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Miller?
Yes.
Councilwoman Zavella?
Yes.
Councilman Longman?
Yes.
Number 4, the town board to consider the town's entry onto certain real property located at 703 Middle Country Road in St. James, reputedly owned by Competition Carting Corp., for the purpose of remediating and or removing the structure thereat, which has been designated as unsafe in accordance with Chapter 112 of the Town Code.
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, members of the town board. My name is Mark Simon. I'm an assistant town attorney for the town of Smithtown. The purpose of today's public hearing number 4 is for the town board to consider entering on the property at 703 Middle Country Road, St. James, town of Smithtown, New York, for the purpose of removing or remediating the structure which has been found as unsafe by the building director. This property is approximately 500 feet east of the Lake Avenue Middle Country Road intersection on the north side. It's important to note that this property was the subject of a court-ordered cleanup this past January, where we took a bunch of industrial equipment off the site, as well as demolishing an unsafe garage in the backyard while we were there. What remains is essentially a house which has been boarded up and painted a couple times in the past month. We met with the property owner's attorney, Vincent Tremarco, last week, and Mr. Tremarco sent us a letter this past Friday which said that his client has decided to not remodel or remediate the structure. He's just going to demolish it. And further, that he has hired Pansner Demolition out of Patchogue to do the job. So we're going to keep an eye on that. We're in the process of obtaining proof of that hire, and we're going to keep an eye on it. At this time, the town attorney's office would suggest that no action be taken today, but that we wait 30 days to see what the property owner does with regard to the demolition.
Thank you, Counsel. Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing? Anybody on the town board? Thank you. Move to close the hearing.
Second. Supervisor Warehead?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella?
Yes.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Number 5, the town board to consider a proposed amendment to chapter 322 of the town code entitled zoning as it relates to special exception uses.
This hearing is not closed.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the town board. David Barnes, the Assistant Planning Director. The Planning Department has worked with the Town Attorney's Office to craft the wording of the code to be considered today. This public hearing is for a modification of Chapter 322 as it relates to filling stations and accessory convenience stores. The first item is to modify the districts that filling stations are permitted in with subject to a BZA special exception by deleting the CB district and continuing the filling stations within the NB and WSI district. The second thing is to modify the special exception standards for accessory convenience sales at filling stations, which would increase the retail sales area from 1,000 feet to 1,250 square feet in the NB zoning district, and it would increase the retail sales area from 350 square feet to 1,250 square feet in the WSI zoning district. This will be more in keeping with applications that have been previously granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals and the variances granted and the sites that are existing within the town. Does the board have any questions related to this?
Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing? Anybody on the town board? No. Mr. Barnes, thank you. We'll move to
Thank
close the hearing.
Second. Supervisor Warehead?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella?
Yes.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Okay, that concludes public hearings. Madam Clerk, we can continue.
Advertise for public hearing. Number 1, authorize the town clerk to advertise for a public hearing to be held at the Smithtown Town Hall on Thursday, September 19th at 7 p.m. to consider zoning petition 2013-5 by KPE2 LLC located on Old Northport Road, northwest of its intersection with Lawrence Road in Kings Park, for a change of zone. Number 2, the town board to authorize the town clerk to advertise for a public hearing to be held at 2 p.m. on September 3rd at Town Hall to consider the town's entry onto certain real property located at 555 Lake Avenue, St. James, reputedly owned by 555 Lake Avenue LLC, for the purpose of remediating and or removing the structure thereat, which has been designated as unsafe in accordance with Chapter 112.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Anzarella?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noah?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Waring?
Yes.
And then we have the consent agenda controller, which is numbers 1 through 11 as per the agenda, and consent agenda resolutions, numbers 1 through 6.
Okay, is there anyone on the town board wishes to remove anything from either consent agenda?
No.
No.
Okay.
Motion? Motion goes second. Second. Supervisor Waring?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noah?
Yes.
Councilwoman Anzarella?
Yes.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Under resolutions, the town board to issue a secret negative declaration, determination of non-significance in the following matters. 1, the matter of the application for site plan approval by Frank Menino for Menino's Comac, south side of Jericho Turnpike, west of Sunken Meadow Parkway in Comac.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Anzarella?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noah?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Waring?
Yes.
B, the town board to authorize the town clerk to advertise for the following bids to be returned to town hall at 11 a.m. on the dates indicated. Number 1, bid number 19-71, handicapped accessible concrete ramp at Smithtown Landing. 2, bid 19-81, sidewalk renovations on New York State's Route 25. Number 3, bid number 19-84, annual contract for the removal and processing of curbside recyclable material from the MSF facility. 4, bid number 19-85, skid steer loader used.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Anzarella?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noah?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Waring?
Yes.
C, the town board to award the following bids and to authorize the purchase of associated goods or services. Number 1, award of RFP 19-61 for maintenance and repair of physical systems to Wayron LFG Services, Miller Environmental Group, and Benson Contracting and EnviroTrack. 2, bid 19-44, renovation of Flynn Memorial Park, building construction to P. de Blasio Builders.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Anzarella?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noah?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Waring?
Yes.
D, the town board to approve the following. 1, agreement between the town of Smithtown and Connect America Medical Alert to provide emergency response units for its senior citizen residents to be funded by a grant to the town of Smithtown Community Development Department. 2, Robert J. Murphy, Superintendent of Highways, to enter into an agreement with the state of New York for the purpose of snow removal operations on state-owned highways within the jurisdiction of the town of Smithtown. 3, a proposal from Cornerstone to provide the Department of Environment and Waterways with professional geophysical services. 4, Bay Constable Daniel Shannon to attend Marine Patrol Vessel Operators Course. 5, agreement with Commercial Cleaning, Long Island, New York,